Hi everyone, I'm Richard Winstone with Over 50s Money. Today I'm joined by Jamie Jones from Vida Estate Planning. Hi Jamie.
Hi.
And Jamie's going to be answering some questions about powers of attorney for us. So at the moment, if you're unaware, we have a deal on with Vida Estate Planning for powers of attorney. You get 15% off and a free will. But we have received a lot of questions from people about what a power of attorney is, why they're important, and I thought who better to tell you than the man doing them himself. So, hi Jamie, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Richard. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well today, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not so bad, not so bad.
All right, let's jump into the questions about powers of
Okay,
attorney. So, can you just give us a brief overview of what a power of attorney is and why someone might want one?
absolutely. Yeah. So, power of attorneys are effectively a way of managing your estate or someone managing your estate if you lose capacity. So, the definition to a degree is mental capacity. Effectively, if you are not able to make decisions for yourself or care for yourself, then what happens is you effectively need someone to do that for you. So there's two types of powers of attorney you can have, or what we call, so let's say lasting powers of attorney. I'll call them LPAs because that will make it easier a little bit.
Yeah.
There's two types. First of all, there's one for financial affairs, and there is also one for health and well-being. So financial affairs, as you can imagine, pretty much does what it says on the tin. It's effectively allowing your attorneys, so people that you appoint that you trust, to make decisions on your finances and to be able to pay your bills, etc., etc. So
Okay.
just a brief scenario in that scenario, certainly a lot of people will automatically think that if you're married, that if one of you loses mental capacity, then effectively your spouse can just carry on you paying your bills, running everything, etc., etc. But technically that's not the case. Even if you've got joint accounts, if you've got someone that loses capacity and they have their name on an account, that account gets stopped and locked. You shouldn't,
Even if your name's on the account as well?
Yep, because it's kind of looked at, I guess, more than anything, it may be looked at in a sense that in times gone by, in a sense that the actual abuser could be the person who is the spouse. So they don't want, the government kind of took the view that actually, that this person, we need to be looking after the person that's lost capacity. So therefore, anything that's in their name, you cannot touch. So that could be anything, bank accounts, electricity bills, gas, electricity, whatever it might be. If it's in that person's name, you have no right to be able to talk about it and sort it. So what that can do is obviously leave people in lots of debt whilst they try and get things organized, and whilst they can't pay bills. If you've got a mortgage to pay, whatever bills, council tax, whatever it may be, suddenly you can't pay those, and you find yourself in more and more debt, and the costs start racking up.
Okay, and how long could someone typically be struggling to get power of attorney after someone loses capacity? So like if you don't start the application beforehand and get it all set up ready, your spouse loses capacity one day. How long would it take you to then be able to get back in control of your finances?
Well, yeah, good question. So effectively, to be able to do that, you have to go, if you don't have a power of attorney in place, you have to go through the courts to get effectively the attorneyship in place, or get the attorney set up. That can take up to, well, 9 to 10 months to get into place. That's the average. It can take longer depending on the complexities and who's involved in it and who wants to put the power there. Generally, that would cost anything up to about £5,000 to £6,000. So it's quite a chunk of money. And also, it would mean that you get what they call a deputy appointed by the courts. So if you then need to make any decisions on that person's like finances or health, then you have to run that past the deputy first, and they have to agree on it, and then you can do it. So making payments or just doing anything will still be very, very difficult.
Oh, that's frustrating. And I imagine there's obviously more delays caused by that because you have to wait for the deputy to reply to all of your messages and requests.
Well, absolutely. Yes, I mean there'll be bits and pieces backwards and forwards. They'll have to sign off with all the attorneys, make sure everyone's happy. So that will just take more and more time. And you can imagine if you've got 9 months without access to any finances, well, that can be a bit of a problem for some people.
Yeah, I mean, for most people, especially as you say, if you've got mortgage payments to make, I don't think mortgage providers typically like waiting 9 months for their payments.
No, exactly.
No, that's
and this can happen at any point in your life. You know, it's unfortunately everybody kind of looks at this in the sense that, oh, well, you know, I'm not old enough to lose capacity, but it could be a simple, you know, you're knocked off your bike or you have an accident of some kind, and you can be effectively in a hospital for 2 to 3 months for a period of time, and or you have a stroke. You know, strokes and things, people happen at all sorts of ages, heart attacks. There's all sorts of things that happen to us as we get older that mean that we may need someone to look after our finances. And we're kind of talking about finances here. So it is worth putting it in place as soon as you possibly can.
okay. So
the other side is, I haven't talked about the health one, just so on the finances one, just so you're aware as well. And obviously, again, this is something that may happen to the demographic of people we speak to, I guess, in the sense of in my line of work and your line of work, in the sense that lots of people go traveling and maybe have second properties abroad and maybe go and live abroad for a little bit at the time of the year, or they may even know somebody who does that. The joy of having a financial power of attorney in place is it means that you can go away and those people can look after your finances whilst you're out of the country. It's not something that you just have to lose capacity for. You can kind of go, well, actually, I'm going to travel for 3 months. I want this person to pay my bills, look after my estate whilst I'm gone. And the attorney can do that as well within the finance one.
okay, cool. So that kind of answers one of my questions. I was going to say, if I personally got a power of attorney in place today for my finances and gave it to my sister, does that mean she'd immediately have the right to like look after my finances or spend my money and such? Or does it only kick in when someone loses capacity or when they give permission, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly in that scenario, they would have effectively access to be able to look after your estate, but you've got capacity. There's no reason for her being able to make that call or do anything with it. She'd have
Fair
to,
enough.
yeah. So no, whilst you are given that power over, hence you make sure you give it to somebody you trust.
Yeah. Okay. There's
Yeah.
the logic there. Perfect sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So takes about 9 months to go through if you're going through the courts after someone's already lost capacity. If I was to start setting up a lasting power of attorney today, how long am I looking at through the normal process?
That's a very good question, Richard. So, well, actually, at the minute, so the people you have to register this with is called the Office of the Public Guardian, what we call the OPG.
Yeah.
And at the minute in England and Wales, they are taking up to at least, well, about 5 months to get registered.
Still a long waiting list then.
It's a long time. My understanding is they are working to bring that waiting time down.
I was going to ask, is that typical? Is that just a backlog?
Well, it's a backlog. I mean, funny enough, I did one for a couple, probably about, I think about a month or so ago, and they have heard back.
Okay.
And so
maybe they are working. Maybe they're getting through the backlog quite quickly then.
Yeah, or just luck of the draw, I suspect. Sometimes it's, you know, if someone picks up the file and it looks, let's be honest, I guess it's like anything, online least resistance. If someone's got a pack through and it looks all complicated and there's a few errors and bits and pieces, they might put that to the bottom of the pile. Whereas if you've got everything spot on and everything's completed correctly, then, well, okay, we'll do that one today, shall we? Because that makes our lives a lot easier. We can start making that backlog look less.
Yeah, not to throw shade at government departments or anything like that, but it's fairly similar to the passport office. My parents, theirs went through in a couple of weeks. My uncles took a couple of months, and one of my uncles has lost his They lost his passport, and it's been almost a year now. So
brilliant.
Yeah, so I think you're right. Well, if the application is smooth and easy, straight to the top of the pile, straight out the door. Otherwise, it could take quite a long time. Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Funny you say about passport office. Very quickly, I'll tell you that once I did my passport application, and they sent me through my passport with someone else's picture in, which was quite
your details.
My details, someone else's picture, and I contacted them, and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna have to send me," and they're like, "Oh, we're really sorry, you can't have that one." I'm like, "Well, funny that, no."
You're like, "Yeah, no, I can't get out the country. I don't like this person.
This is not me." And if brilliant, because again, I contacted them, tell them that this is wrong, and they went, "Yeah, well, you've got to do this. You've got to send us another picture, blah blah." And about 2 days later, I had a new passport through with my right picture on, so God knows what happened.
Well, at least that one came through really quickly then. Fair enough.
Yeah. So the key there, get the paperwork correct, which is hence why if someone like me will do it, I'll get all the the typing, spellings, everything's pre-filled, ready to go. So you just literally sign it and send it. It's done. So
okay, so before sending it to the OPG, how long does the process with you take? Like if I was to sit down with you and get a power of attorney done, how long are we spending on the phone? How much information do I have to give? Is that a long drawn out process, or is that quite quick?
yeah, it's pretty quick. I mean, generally, I will always try and do a two-stage process with my clients. Mainly, first of all, I will have a first initial call with them. So purchase a product, you then book into my diary. Very simple. Effectively, whenever you're free, it's a simple process to book in. And then I will speak to the client for 10 to 15 minutes, really. It's really just to get a basic idea. I have to get certain bits on from my compliance side of things that I've spoken to, understanding their estate, what they're looking to protect, what their areas of concern are, etc., etc. I will then effectively you'll receive a form from me, which you then complete. It's a very basic form, but what mainly, obviously, in this line, what we tend to find is that if we try and take everything over the phone, things get lost in translation, spellings become wrong, and it's easier to do the form. So the form is very simple. It's not too onerous. We've not had any problems with it. I then would then have a second call, and at that point, it's really about dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So I can go through it and go, okay, make sure the names are spelt correctly. I've got the right person in the right place. And there's certain questions which will come up in the form, such as, do you need to notify anyone? A lot of people say no, but in the sense that I just need to be clear that, look, you know, some people would even say yes to that, and that just can delay the process. So it would be a case of, look, if you notify someone, it can take a bit more time, or, you know, are you happy for someone to effectively make life-sustaining decisions on your health, etc. So it's just, I'll just have the second call to just make sure they've understood exactly what they've completed, what's there, and then from there it takes about 7 days to receive a summary document, which just effectively points out, you know, spellings, make sure everything's in it. And then once that comes back and said, okay, I'll then send it all out on the post-recorded delivery. So I guess from start to finish, it can be as quick, depending on when we can get the diary appointments in, it can be sort of 2 weeks or so, really, until you receive the paperwork in the post.
Okay, cool. That doesn't sound too bad.
It depends really on the client as well. Sometimes they can take a bit longer to get things back, or they can't book in straight away. So it all depends.
Yeah. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Doesn't sound too onerous for the client, which is good. And then obviously it goes off to the OPG, and then it's up to 5 months. Could be as quick as 1 month, and then it's all set up in place, ready to go. Even if it's not needed straight away, it's there for when it is needed.
Yes, absolutely.
So the two powers of attorney, there's health and finances. Can you apply for both simultaneously? Can you give them to separate people? So I want someone looking after my money, but someone else looking after my health. I assume you don't have to have the same power of attorney for both.
You're absolutely right. Yes, you can set attorneys up in different ways. Absolutely.
Okay, and can you also have multiple powers of attorney for one aspect? So can I have 3 people looking after my finances, for example?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, absolutely, because they're separate attorneyships. So effectively, you have one for health and well-being, and one for financial affairs. So yes, you could have 3 people look after your finances, and just one person is responsible for your health if you wanted to.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I'm just trying to understand all my various options. And to be clear, if I did assign 3 people to look after my finances, that's 3 separate attorneyships, which means it'd be 3 lots of fees and 3 lots of government application fees. No?
No. So,
Okay.
no. So let's kind of go with the first part of the question in regards to people looking after your finances. So so you have one power of attorney, effectively lasting power of attorney. You can name up to 4 attorneys within that power of attorney. So basically 4 people that would look after your finances. So they're effectively, but you don't have to pay anything for each individual one. They're just registered as the attorneys looking after your estate.
Okay, that makes sense.
The actual lasting power of attorney is one document. So for each person, you can effectively have 2 powers of attorney, one for financial affairs, one for health and well-being. Okay, so if you've got a couple, you'd have effectively 4 different attorneys. That makes 4 different powers of attorney. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But how many people you set to look after that is up to 4 people effectively within that document.
Okay, fair enough. So for a couple, just extrapolate now here, you could have up to 16 people looking after 2 people's health and finances.
Yes, but I would not recommend that.
Yeah, of course not. Sorry, I'm just doing the maximum that I'm a mathematicician at heart. I just
that would be a nightmare.
Okay, fair enough. So that makes sense. So you each have your 2 powers of attorney that you could give to other people. It's one fee for each power of attorney that you assign, but you can set up to 4 attorneys on each power of attorney.
Yes.
Cool. That makes perfect sense in my head.
Yes.
I hope that made sense saying it out loud as well. If you're watching this video and you have questions, feel free to email me or Jamie. Both of our email addresses are in the description in the video below, and we'll explain that slightly better if needed. But that's clear to me. Thanks, Jamie. So while we're on the fees,
I was going to say, yes, go on, you go.
Yeah, so there's obviously the attorney's fees, and then there's also the government fees. Can you just talk us through those, and if there's going to be any other fees we might not expect?
Okay, so effectively, let's start off with what they do with Vida. So what's available through your portal and the discounts, etc.
Yeah.
Effectively, what you're paying for my service is effectively to complete all the paperwork for you, to make sure that everything is completed correctly on those forms, and that I run through and make sure you're well aware of what you're signing up to, who you're putting in place, and effectively as well to make sure you're compass mentis enough to be able to be doing this.
Makes sense.
So that's what my side of things is to do, and is to take out that hassle of having to do all that paperwork, because if you get anything wrong, it's coming back and you've got to start all over again. And actually what I'll do is make sure everything's correct. I had a client the other day, funny enough, they'd done all the paperwork and they'd asked me for a video call, and effectively went through all the paperwork with me. And I was like, you've missed that there. They'd missed just a little bit of signing and dates. And it's just little things like that. You get that wrong, it comes back and you've got to start the whole 5-month process all over again. So it's much better.
Frustrating. Yeah.
It's a nightmare. So much better get it in place. Get me to put everything in place, get it all correct on that bit of paperwork, so you know that when that goes in, it's going to be correct.
Yeah.
So that's what you're paying for us to do. The next thing then, the only other fee then, is what you pay to the government to register the powers of attorney. And that costs currently £82 per power of attorney. Okay, so if you imagine, if you are a couple and you have all your powers of attorney, you want to get them all in place, that's effectively 4 powers of attorney. So it's 4 times £82.
Okay, fair. So you're coming in at what, £328, something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
And then that's for the government fees, and then obviously there's the discounted fees with you guys, Vida, through our website, which I'll include in the description below, guys, just in case you're interested. And I'll put the discount codes there as well. But that'll be added onto the government fee, so you can see a total sort of value. And obviously there's further discounts if you get what's it called, mirrored LPAs, or when you get as a couple.
What, as in if you, okay, so because I think we've got, there's different, like what I think what there is we've got, obviously there's a cost for 1 power of attorney, cost for 2 powers of attorney, and a cost for 4 powers of attorney, and each one comes into a different price bracket, is what you're getting at.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. The discount's the same. Yeah, sorry.
Yes,
but they go into different price brackets depending on what you purchase. Okay, and all that's described in the description below, guys. I think from my end, Jamie, you've answered all of my questions. Is there anything else you'd want to say to someone watching this video that's considering a power of attorney?
I guess the only thing I would say in regards to the registration is the most important thing, really, as much as anything else, is to have that power of attorney in place. Because if you consider, if you don't have a power of attorney in place and signed and ready to be registered, you then would have to go through the courts. Okay. Whereas if you've got the power of attorney in place and it's signed and ready to be registered, if for some reason you then lose capacity, you can then just register it. You don't have to go through the courts.
Does that make sense? Because you've already signed it when you had capacity.
Exactly.
Okay, so that makes perfect sense.
What lots of people tend to do is stagger the registration to save the £82 as such per every time. So I had again another client the other week. They did all 4, but they're right the second at a time. The most important one to them was the financial one, so they want to get that one in place first. So they paid to register that one first. They're going to give it a few months, and then they'll do the next ones. So it's the important thing is to have them in place, signed and ready to go. Because if you don't have that, that's when you end up through the courts, and that's when it becomes thousands and thousands of pounds.
All right, so as long as they've done the part with the solicitor, with you, where it's all signed and set to be sent, then they're in good standing. And even if they lose capacity later, they've already done the signature part, so it's still legally binding and fine. It just needs to be registered with the government, and that could be done at any point.
Yes.
All right, perfect. I think that was really helpful. Thanks, Jamie.
All right, excellent. And I think I've probably waffled enough, so.
Yeah, same. I think you've answered all my questions. If I have any more, obviously I'll come back to you and let you know, and maybe add it onto the video later. But thank you for taking the time today to answer our questions.
You're welcome.
And if anyone is interested in contacting Jamie, again, his email address, his phone number, and his website are all in the description in the video below. I'll also put a discount code that you can use on his website to get the 15% off. And sorry, we didn't mention it too much, but at the moment, there's also a free will with the 15% off the LPAs. So
yeah,
get that. That lasts until the end of May 2023. So yeah, get on top of that now. Thank you again, Jamie, and I guess I'll speak to you again next week.
No problem. Thank you, Richard.